The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Earnestly podcast here coming to you on August, I believe it's August 16th, 2020, Sunday night. NBA playoffs eve, and of course, the man, Danny Thompson. It's been a long time to be on the pod. I think since February, maybe. Danny, what's up, buddy? DT!
My main man, EJ, man. Listen, it's a pleasure being on this podcast. We do this maybe twice a year, so we got to start increasing it to 3 times a year.
Nah, that twice a year, I think that'll stop too, especially. I mean, although I will admit, because of the stoppage of sports, obviously, because of COVID-19, I mean, obviously there really wasn't much to talk about on the sports end of things, so, that's understandable, but in general, we gotta up this up a little more than this twice a year. That's just ridiculous.
Always.
And that's my fault, for the record. Not your fault, it's my fault. Like we tried to get this in last night, and, dude, I tell you, I realized why my kid didn't go to sleep on time last night. Like, because everything, and everybody that's this podcast knows this. Kyle knows this. Everybody that comes on the regular guest on this podcast, they know this. That everything I do is hinder my kids. As long as they're asleep and there's no interruptions, I'm good. So I worked yesterday too, during the day, and my youngest son, Logan, who's 3. He's, I used to record a lot of my podcasts in the afternoon because I know he's guaranteed a nap every day. So I get like I can steal 2 hours or an hour, in the middle of the day to record a podcast. And lately he hasn't been napping, so it's like, okay, whatever, no big deal. So we'll just do it at nighttime. Well, yesterday at work, so my mother-in-law was watching the kids yesterday for the day, and kind of find out he slept 2 hours yesterday. So that's why he had no reason to sleep early last night. And I should have listened because Danny and I planned to do this podcast last night, actually, not today, but yeah, finally we got in today though, so we're good.
I mean, listen, kids. At least the good thing with your son is that he had more energy than Daniel Cormier in the last 2 rounds of the UFC fight on Saturday night. So give him credit for that.
So he did lose last night.
Cormier lost the fight. I mean, the 3rd round he didn't really do much, and we watch enough fights, no matter whether UFC, boxing. If you're going against the champion, you don't want to put in the hands of the judges. You got to do what you got to do.
Right.
And he didn't have enough movement. Stipe's a way bigger guy anyway. It's like it was a good fight though. Cormier was a great champion. I'm glad he's going out the way he did, and I just hope not to see him back in the ring again.
Is he really retiring? Do you believe him though? Is he really retiring?
I think he is. I mean, he had been talking about it for over a year plus before the fight. He only took this fight because, hey, listen, it was a big money draw, and he only wants to fight for championships. And what's really left? He's lost to Stipe twice. Mm-hmm. I mean, does John Jones want to get back in the ring with Cormier a 3rd time after he's beat him technically 1.5 times already?
Mm-hmm.
So, what's left? Cormier has nothing left to prove at this point.
Right. Good point. Recently you moved from Orlando to North Carolina. What's up?
Back to Charlotte. Back to my stomping grounds. It's being closer to my mom. Throughout the years, my mom has a rare form of cancer, so
sorry to hear that.
It's a blood cancer, and the thing is, through the grace of God, she's been here, a lot longer than most people who have it. So I figured to be a blessing, and so I didn't want to, you never know how long that time frame is. So At least I know that as long as I'm here with her. So it was a relocation process home. EJ, we talked about this in the pod before. We both have kids. So it was one of the hardest things leaving my little one in Florida with her mom. But, she's at the age of 7, so she and I have a good bond already. So right. It wasn't as hard of a move. But, it's good to be in a place where I've lived, 20 years. I know where everything is. My mom is close by. My dad's close by, and it's good. It's good to be covering. It's good to be working, hopefully, with the Hornets and the Panthers again, and and the new Charlotte FC team. So it's good. It's a fresh start.
Have you seen your daughter through the pandemic, or has it been hard to go down south?
Marco Polo's been my best friend. The at Marco Polo, because I caretake my mom. going down to Florida, that's the hardest part, and because if I go to Florida, I'm gonna have to quarantine myself for at least 2 weeks coming back.
Right.
And with
right.
my mom having appointments and and she needs me for things, it's a little too soon. So I was gonna go down Labor Day weekend, but I don't think that's gonna work. So no, come hell, high water, or even through a cane choke slam, I will be down. I'll be getting my daughter for Christmas. That's for sure.
It's a big sacrifice you're doing there too, especially. I mean, you have your own family and whatever. It's definitely a challenge. I mean, I respect it.
Mhm.
How's it been for you otherwise throughout this whole pandemic?
With sports picking up, you really have like literally, it's basketball all day long now. You have the WNBA. I mean, the NBA. I covered 3 WNBA teams for 3-point conversion. So it's like it's constant. It's constant. And now you're getting into football, or what's left of football, and it's a smorgasbord of everything. So I've been busy. It's been staying busy every day. How about you?
Like I can write a book on the things that or at least a little book on the things we've gone through with this pandemic, in terms of the family and dealing with, challenges with the marriage and the parenting, we're good, obviously, but, obviously your mettle is tested in situations like this when you have, especially in my case, you have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old and having to, be home and finding things to keep them occupied. They can't go see their, they can't go see their cousins or see their friends because obviously we were locked down, quarantined. It's one of those things where you really test the metal to see how far you can handle things before it gets a little bit interesting, if you will.
Of course. I mean that's that's the whole point of being a parent. Like, it's going to test all the metal, and the good thing is you and the wife has always worked through it, and you guys work together.
Absolutely.
And,
ooh, you're right through the ticket, absolutely, absolutely, man, absolutely. Football, real quick. Where do you stand? Okay, football really is really in 2 topics. You have college football, you have NFL. Obviously, two entities, if you will, going in different directions right now. College football, at least right now, looks like we're going to have limited, if not any, college football this year, at least in the fall. The NFL is still trucking through. We'll see how that goes as September comes around. I guess more I want to ask you, forget where we're at, more so how you feel. Okay, topic 1, college football. How do you feel about, whether or not, where do you stand on it? Do you think it's a cancel? Do you think it should push through? What do you think?
Listen, the thing is, I felt, if it could go, it should go. But in the last week or so, there should be no reason why they should be playing right now. If the regular students can't be on campus, what do the athletes need to be on campus for? They're human beings like everybody else. Sometimes it's more than just money. I know Justin Fields is getting a petition together to get players, to get the Big Ten players back on the field. But the second, we had these announcements of the Big 12 and the ACC and the SEC say we're playing football, Oklahoma has 9 players test positive, and they shut down practice for a whole week. You look at, even going into the NBA, you look at Mo Bamba of the Magic, who is the same age as a lot of these kids in college, had to leave the bubble because of the fact of he's still having symptoms from the coronavirus that supposedly he doesn't even have anymore. He can't get rid of the symptoms. They can't figure out what it is. It's affecting more youth and youth nowadays with no idea what's going on. But the difference between Mo Bamba, who has a guaranteed NBA contract with a health insurance plan, and a whole bunch of kids who are on scholarship, and most of them can't even go buy a meal for dinner, but they're risking their lives, and there is no, there's no insurance plan for them, and there's no bubble for college football. Like, just wait till after the first of the year. The Ivy League got it right the first time. Follow the smart schools. Follow the Harvards. If they're not playing, I don't think regular college football play either. So they need to work with it anyway.
Yeah, the NFL, obviously, I've been saying this all along, that I believe commerce will dictate where that goes. Because, unlike college football, both parties, the players and obviously the ownership, whatever, they both, have something to gain here by playing, money, So I've always said that commerce will dictate that. So, if the players, if they vote on it and the players want to play, have at it. That's my stance on that. Have at it. It's your money. But college football, I'm with 100%. They should just sit it out, until they get it right.
And the other part is that universities NCAA shut out all the kids next year eligibility.
Mm-hmm.
Give them extra year eligibility because it's not their fault. This is a global pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Give the players the option to either go to the NFL or if they want to get an additional year of college, don't penalize them for it. A lot of seniors want a chance to have their senior days. Give them their opportunities. And even with the schools playing now, like, are we having bowl games? Like, how are we going to figure out a national champion where half of the Power 5 schools are not even playing?
Yeah. Right now we have, so far we have the Big Ten out. We have the Pac-12 out. Now the Big 12 has said they're going to press on. I believe the SEC will wait till the final minutes, the final seconds before they decide what to do.
And the ACC's in. So, I mean, I think ACC and SEC are like, they're good to go. I had mentioned this on me and Kyle's show Beyond the Buzzer that the NCAA reminds me, EJ, I'm not sure. I mean, let's go into your video game knowledge here. You go back to the early 1990s. The NCAA now looks like Bill Walsh college football or college football's national championship on the Sega Genesis. There are no conferences at this point. You got 32 teams out there just playing football. Okay, You just really at this point, there's no such thing as a conference schedule. Let them all play. Just let them all. If you're risking all this, you might as well go ahead and put them in one big super conference and let them all figure it out. The top 4 teams. That's it.
Like the NFL, do a 1-year league. There you go.
Yeah, because at this point, what you can't really determine a national champion, especially if Ohio State's not playing this. Ohio State's a top 5 team. You can't determine that.
Right. No, I'm with you there. I definitely see a point there. Like I said, it's going to be very interesting the next couple of weeks because, like I said, half the college conferences are in or out, should I say, half are in, and the NFL is around the corner, like less than a month away. So it's going to be a fascinating next 3 weeks. Let's talk NBA. This is the reason why you're here, especially. Before we get to the playoff predictions, your predictions mostly. There was a bit of news that came out on Friday that really had me, just thinking about, why and was his plan, whatever. Alvin Gentry was fired by the Pelicans after 5 seasons with the team. Now, obviously, a lot of the criticism, toward the franchise has been the usage rate of Zion Williamson, specifically the last 2-3 weeks in the bubble, whatnot. He was playing, minute restriction. Was it 15 minutes a game? Whatever it was, and then you wouldn't see him in the fourth quarters and all that. Even though the Pelicans were within the strike of distance to make the playoffs, I'm curious if. Was this call made by management? Was this call, and I'm talking about the more the Zion thing. Was the call made by management or was it made by Alvin Gentry? And if Gentry is also taking the, taking the explosion, if you will. Like, he's like being blamed for this and whatnot. I'm really confused though. Who should be blamed for this and why is Gentry getting fired? I'm just curious.
Well, number one, you gotta remember, Alvin Gentry was never David Griffin's first choice of head coach. He just inherited him. So, and any time a new GM or any type of new regime happens, of course, you want your own person in place. Number two, Zion Williamson also, I think, had something to do with this. It's not because of what he did on the court. Not coming up and showing up healthy, right, or even in the right shape.
15 pounds overweight. They were saying 15 pounds overweight.
I mean, how much more overweight can he be? I mean, Zion Williamson is built like a defensive end in the NFL. The only difference is he's on the bigger side of it. You can't play. Right. He's the largest guy. I think Boban Marjanovic might be the only guy that weighs more than Zion Williamson. And Boban's 7'3"?
Yeah.
Zion's 6'7" on a Wednesday. So it's like, it's a bad situation when Charles Barkley is giving you advice on how to lose weight. Because where did Charles Barkley get it from? He got it from Moses Malone when Moses got in the league. He's like, bro, you got to lose weight. Zion couldn't. He can't. First of all, I remember he tore his meniscus in the summer, and pretty much was held out. He comes back on a minute restriction because guess what? He couldn't run, and so he was technically not in shape. Then of course we have the bubble. He leaves the bubble for a family emergency, and that's important, but could not work out when he was gone. So instead of having those 2 weeks to get himself back in game shape, they're throwing him back in as soon as he gets there. The franchise is like, we got all this stuff invested in him. He is our future of the franchise. We can't get him hurt because he's overweight. So this is on everybody. Now, Alvin Gentry is not exactly the greatest coach in the league, not the worst, but
Right.
I think he's taken the fall, and to be honest, EJ, he reminds me so much of Stan Albeck in Chicago with Michael Jordan with the gloves. This is
Right.
1986 Michael Jordan all over again. You know,
wow.
he's been told to use Zion with kid gloves. That's it. 15 minutes. What player can play 15 minutes a game and get some kind of rhythm? And you're
My
playing.
thing is it's a waste of damn time. It's a waste of damn time. Why, if he's only 15 minutes and not even playing the most important minutes in the fourth quarter in the middle of a playoff race, which at the time they were on the way back into the race and it was in striking distance of getting the 8th seed. Why the hell is he playing then if you're not going to play him, full minutes?
I mean, the thing is, okay, but here's the question: what 3-4 minute stretch you gonna play him in the fourth quarter? Because if you start him in the third quarter, you know, and he comes out at the 7-8 minute mark in the quarter, the real problem becomes you're going to bring him in 20 game minutes later to finish off the game. He's going to be creaky and everything else, and you know, it's just Alvin Gentry was a no-win situation, and he had to be the fall guy. Now the next person that they bring in, which will be David Griffin's guy, they're going to have to get Zion Williamson in shape. They're going to have to get him something.
Who do you think? Well, speculate real quick. Who do you think it'll be? Just throw names out. I mean,
I think to me, Tyronn Lue's the right fit. It's a better fit for Tyronn there than in Brooklyn, or even with the Lakers, or wherever the other places that he's been tagged to. Because in New Orleans, he'll have a chance to actually work with the players. They're not required to win a championship right now in New Orleans, and that gives Ty Lue plenty of time to develop a culture out there. I think he would. I mean, with the fact that you wanted a championship as a coach, and you know you won as a player, you're going to be able to get in Zion's head, and I guarantee you, David Griffin's going to tell him, you're not going to be eating these New Orleans gumbo and beignets. You're about to really start drinking smoothies, and you're going to literally lose 25 pounds. This can't happen.
Yeah, living in New Orleans, boy, with that food there, boy. Woo!
No, you got to stay away from
tempting as hell. The beignets,
crawfish.
Damn.
Listen, it's sponsored by Smoothie King.
Yeah, but let me make him. Maybe send him some DoorDash, some of those Smoothie Kings to the house. That's for damn sure.
Exactly.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens there with New Orleans. Very fascinating. I just, to me, I'm more of a whether he's in or out. If you're gonna play him, and try to get in the playoffs. If not, don't play him at all. To me, the 15 minutes a game was pointless, honestly.
I mean, the thing is, you can't get any unless you're playing 7-8 minute spurts. Then I get it, but to play 3 minutes, we saw that in the game against New Orleans, this breakout game, he struggled, and then guess what? He had a 4-minute stretch where he scored 16 points in 4 minutes. And Alvin Gentry's looking on the side like I do not want to take this guy out. He's out here nailing 3-pointers with his flat foot shot. And you're he doesn't want to take him out, and then he has to. The whole crowd gets irritated. But are you going to lose your job over this because this guy is not healthy?
Fair point. All right, let's talk about teams that actually are playing for something starting tomorrow, actually. NBA playoffs in the bubble start tomorrow. I'm actually excited. I mean, NBA playoffs in August? Look, I'm okay with it. So what, being a Met fan, though, especially? The Mets are up and down. My Miami Heat in the playoffs in general serves a nice distraction in the meantime. It really does. It really does. So, we want to start first, East or West?
Let's talk. The West has more intriguing matchups. Let's start in the East.
Okay. So, 1-8, Milwaukee Bucks, Orlando Magic. Of course, there's no home court advantage any of these series because obviously they're all in the bubble. So, the same there. 1-8, Milwaukee and Orlando. Milwaukee kind of struggling in the bubble a little bit, but I feel like that's more so just them getting back into the groove a little bit. Orlando, is what it is. 2 years in a row making playoffs, though. That's the first time in a while since Dwight was there, Dwight Howard. How many games? Who wins how many games?
Orlando be lucky to win a quarter in the series. This series is probably a sweep. It should be a sweep. If Orlando wins one game, I'll be shocked. Orlando does it without Jonathan Isaac, who's injured for the second time in 3 seasons with a major injury. No Mo Bamba, and Aaron Gordon got hurt before we ended bubble play. Orlando's not healthy, and why Milwaukee struggle? Well, they had clinched early, and 2, Eric Bledsoe and Pat Connaughton weren't there from the start of this thing. They came late, so they had to work themselves back into game shape. And when you're already finished, you don't want injuries to happen. The Bucks might struggle in game 1. If Orlando has any chance to win anything, it'll be game 1. But this should be a sweep. And, yeah, I'm sure Giannis is going to have a field day with being guarded by James Ennis, Wes Iwundu, among other players. This should be ugly.
You say sweep.
It should be a sweep.
That's interesting. That is interesting. All right, 2-7, Toronto Raptors against the Brooklyn Nets. The Raptors defending NBA champions, in case you guys forgot. Still a champion, still. I got to tell you, this scenario especially, having 4 months off, coming back to finish the season here, no home court advantage for anybody here, chemistry. I got to tell you, this entire situation in general, not this first round, this in general, this actually this sets up Toronto very well. If they go to the finals this year, again, would not shock me at all.
I think with the Raptors, I like the Raptors. The Raptors are almost they're playing the exact same way they played last year with Kawhi Leonard, which makes it even more scarier. And the thing with every game that goes on, Fred VanVleet's contract in the summer gets bigger and bigger and bigger every time he steps on the court. Now I know your Brooklyn Nets are in a very interesting situation here. I don't think this is going to be a sweep. I think the Nets will win one game in the series. Reason being is because Karis LeVert is really good at basketball. He's really good. And LeVert, as we watched on Thursday night against Portland, listen, he almost single-handedly won that game for Brooklyn on Thursday night against the Blazers, almost put the Blazers out of the playoffs. So I think LeVert wins one game, but here becomes a real big question. I'm not worried about the sweep. I'm not worried about 5 games, and Toronto is going to go deep in the playoffs. But EJ, my only concern is if Karis LeVert has a huge series, what is that going to mean in the context of the Brooklyn Nets going forward? Because you got 2 superstars that are coming back. Is Karis LeVert going to want to be a third player, a third guy, or maybe a fourth one because Spencer Dinwiddie's not even playing either? All I'm saying is, EJ, if he has a huge series, this sounds like James Harden in Oklahoma City all over again.
And you look at that, obviously 2 players you're talking about Kevin Durant, you're talking about Kyrie Irving. Not just 2 superstars. You're talking about 2 of the top 10 players, and one of them is a top 5 player when healthy, a top 3 player when healthy, if I matter. And you're looking at this team being probably the favorite next year to win it all, or at least win the East. I
mean, the thing is that you want to treat Kevin Durant with kid gloves in the very beginning, because as we all know, the ACL is the Achilles injury is the most debilitating injury in the NBA. It's the career ender.
Right.
EJ, only one player has been an all-star after the Achilles injury.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, EJ, can you name that player?
It was Kobe.
No,
Kobe. Kobe made playoffs.
Kobe also after the Achilles.
Oh, right. Hold on. Wasn't Dominique Wilkins? Was it?
He was the only one.
Dominique, right? Yeah.
Dominique was the only one that was over 25 years ago.
Right.
The Achilles killed Elton Brand's career. It killed DeMarcus. It's basically almost going to kill DeMarcus Cousins' career in the middle of their career. I think the Achilles got Chris Webber too.
I don't remember, actually. To be honest.
I think he tore the Achilles in Sacramento.
I always say Kobe because Kobe didn't make the All-Star team as a final year, but that was an honorary thing.
Yeah, but the thing was he was going to be an All-Star. But the thing, when I say be an All-Star level to play before the Achilles, right. Wesley Matthews has never been the same. Anybody who tears the Achilles has basically not come back, or if they did come back, it's not the same. Kevin Durant's gonna be one of those guys that of course we all know when he's healthy. Arguably the best player in the world. Arguably. I mean, you can have an argument depending on who you want to talk to about it. But when he's healthy, he's top 3 easily. So you want to treat him with kid gloves in the beginning. And, and work his way back in, then Kyrie Irving's an injury risk. Even though for as talented he is, he's injury prone.
Right.
So is Brooklyn the favorite in the East next year? Let's see what happens with Milwaukee in the playoffs, and then we'll circle around this in October when we find out if Giannis holds the championship.
Good point. Who wins the series and how many games? Toronto 5. Oh, you said Toronto 5, I think. Is that right? Yeah, these are Toronto 5, yeah. So, okay. Next one here, 3-6, Boston Celtics versus the Philadelphia 76ers. Would have been a much more interesting series had both teams been healthy, specifically the Sixers with Ben Simmons being out. Like I said, when we were talking for the last year or two about this being the revival of this rivalry, in the coming years, and obviously we get it in the playoffs, but it doesn't feel like it obviously feels underwhelming because of the Ben Simmons injury. Philly's been underwhelming all year long, in my opinion, anyway, even with Simmons. Boston, I said this before we got back to the bubble, that Boston would be the dark horse team in the East to go to the finals. Because remember, there's a home court advantage here, so any middle tier team that actually has talent could bust a couple wins here and there, and before you know it, you're in the conference finals, and who knows?
The one issue I have with the Boston Celtics is the health of Kemba Walker. He wasn't 100% getting into the bubble, and he still doesn't seem like the Kemba Walker with the explosiveness that he had at the beginning of the season. The Celtics are going to need Kemba Walker no matter what series it is. Now, this series is really an interesting one because if Joel Embiid's ankle is healthy and he's ready to go, Boston has no match for Joel Embiid. And if Embiid is super focused, and we've seen him do this before, Embiid could carry the Sixers. There's nothing that one Celtic can do. No Daniel Tice. You're not going to put Jason Tatum on him. Grant Williams is not working. Robert Williams, Billy D. Williams. No one's going to guard Joel Embiid.
Billy D. Williams.
Okay, if Embiid's focused and his head's in the game, Embiid's almost unstoppable in the series. The real question for the Sixers is $180 million of Tobias Harris has to play like $180 million. Josh Richardson has played some of his best basketball of his career in the last couple games. Tobias Harris is going to have to step the scoring role up because the Celtics, and I've mentioned Al Horford for the Sixers as well too. The one thing Boston needs Al Horford in the series. The problem is he's a different jersey. But this is the Sixers. They still can't hit shots from the outside. And my favorite player, Furkan Korkmaz, or as me and a couple of buddies says, Furkan, when it comes to defense, gives no Furkans. I like the Sixers to lose in 6 games. Give me Boston in 6.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that one too, especially. All right, easily, not just being biased here, of course, as a Heat fan, but easily the most compelling series of the first round in the Eastern Conference. Miami Heat 4-5. Miami Heat against Indiana Pacers. These two teams actually did play on Friday. The game really didn't count other than draft position and more than anything else. I don't know. This is going to be a fun series, I think.
It will. Now the Derrick Jones Jr. injury does hurt Miami's depth. Mm-hmm. Jones got hurt, on Friday. It wasn't intentional by Baladaze. It was a bang play. Listen, we all know the storylines with Jimmy Butler and T.J. Warren, so that already makes the series popcorn television already. Like this is a series if you're a basketball fan you got to watch because Jimmy Butler and T.J. Warren, they've been jawing since literally last year, not last season, last year. Warren had put up. Literally, he was scoring 40 and 50 points on a nightly basis, 30, 40, 50 points, including a 50-point game throughout the bubble. The one team that stopped him from that broke all his scoring streak and caused his worst game in the bubble was the Miami Heat, when he shot 5 of 14 during the middle of his hot streak. Jimmy Butler will make it his difference in this series. And EJ, the crazy with the Heat is that with Bam Adebayo, you have Kelly Olynyk knocking down shots. We all know that while they brought in Iguodala and Jay Crowder to be veterans off the bench to play guarding roles, Tyler Hero is playing out of his mind right now. Duncan Robinson is shooting threes. Goran Dragic is Goran Dragic. And they've been playing so well. And the crazy part is Kendrick Nunn hasn't done much of anything. The Heat Heat are the dark horse in this conference, and they're the most dangerous team in this conference. On the Pacers side of things, if the Pacers had Domantas Sabonis, this is a different series. But since they don't, and Adebayo has to pretty much go against Miles Turner, it's going to be a struggle. Oladipo's not 100%. Malcolm Brogdon and T.J. Warren can score the basketball, but without Jeremy Lamb, I don't know if the Pacers bench can keep up with it. I like the Heat in 6. I give the Pacers a win or two in the series. I like the Heat in 6, but man, listen, Miami, Milwaukee in round 2 is going to be whoo.
And Miami has the assets to throw at Giannis to slow him down.
It's not even that. I think Eric Spoelstra is going to make Giannis beat him by himself, shut down everybody else, because I don't think you're going to see Jimmy Butler guard Giannis, but I see Jimmy Butler shutting down Chris Middleton, and that's going to be the key. That's going to be the difference in the series. If Chris Middleton can't score, you're now relying on Eric Bledsoe to try to carry the offense and Brook Lopez to hit 3-pointers with DiVincenzo and Connaughton and those guys hitting threes. Listen, Eric Bledsoe has got to make a name for himself because Eric Bledsoe is the reason why Terry Rozier got $50+ million from the Hornets.
Well, I pretty much agree with everything you said here. Other than, like you said, Milwaukee, Orlando is a sweep. I have Milwaukee in 5. I think I agree with you on Toronto going 5 games as well. I agree with you on 6 games Boston, and I agree with you with Miami going 6. We're actually on the same page here. So, yeah, exactly. All right, let's go to the West. Obviously, this is the first 1-8 series. I think intriguing 1-8 series. I think we've seen probably since Knicks and Heat in '99, and now the Lakers in Portland. Now, if this was a regular NBA playoff scenario where Game 1 and 2 the Staples, obviously we're not having this conversation. Okay, but the fact that there's no home court advantage, LA is kind of sort of like Milwaukee struggling to themselves. Portland got hot late in the year. Portland's hot, also coming into the playoffs here. You got Melo, Lillard playing out of his mind. CJ McCollum's playing great. Obviously, people are trying to talk themselves into thinking that Portland can win this series. I don't see that necessarily. I can see him pushing to 6 games. I just don't see it by being LeBron, though, because now that it's time, LeBron will be LeBron when he needs to. And I think Portland will make this game. I think game to game they'll make this game series interesting. But Lakers are good defensively. I think they'll throw guys at Lillard. I think Lillard will have a couple of two explosive games in the series. But good luck beating LeBron AD, man, for a 7-game series. Good luck with that. I don't see it happening.
This series can go 7 games. I have the Lakers in 6, and I'm not really feeling good about Lakers in 6. So I'm thinking maybe Lakers in 7. The issue in the series is it's twofold. The Lakers are going to have issues guarding Lillard and McCollum in the backcourt because there is no Rajon Rondo and Avery Bradley is not with the team. If Rondo does return, he's been out. So what kind of game shape is Rajon Rondo in?
He is returning. He is returning.
Well, okay, so he hasn't done much with the basketball in his hand. What kind of conditioning he's going to be in? And to have Damian Lillard, who basically knows, listen, if you want a guy that's going to throw daggers at the Lakers, Damian Lillard's the guy that's going to do it. We saw, and the thing is, Lillard has unlimited range. So what are you going to do? You're going to throw Rondo at him, who's not completely in game shape? That means you're going to leave with Alex Caruso. Nothing against Alex Caruso, but Damian Lillard's going to go right through him, even though Caruso is top 5 in the NBA overall in pick and roll, and Damian Lillard's number 1 in pick and roll defense, while Damian Lillard's number 1 in pick and roll offense in the NBA for guards. Listen, Danny Green is getting up there in age, and if the Lakers have to use any combination of J.R. Smith and Dion Waiters to try to guard Damian Lillard or CJ McCollum in the series, it's going to be a problem. And the one thing you didn't mention, EJ, is Yusuf Nurkic. Who's going to guard Nurkic for the Lakers?
Yeah.
I mean, you have JaVale McGee and the artist formerly known as Dwight Howard trying to guard him in the post. Because Anthony Davis doesn't want to get physical with Nurkic. No, he don't want to do that. But on the other hand, Portland has issues with defense. We saw Saturday in the playing game. They got 15 points in the first quarter, and you were thinking they were going to blow a shorthanded Grizzlies team out the water. Damian Lillard goes out, and then 6 game minutes later, Memphis has the lead again. It's happened repeatedly, way too much. Portland forgets how to play defense, and in the playoffs, you can't do that. That's why I have the Lakers in 6, because I think LeBron James will not have to guard Damian Lillard until the end of the games. The real question is, will Dame be able to shoot over LeBron like he did Paul George in the series before that last year? Lakers in 6.
Right.
But, man, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 7. And for people who think that Portland's soft, remember, the Blazers got to the Western Conference Finals last year.
Yeah. Oh, in case you forgot. In case you forgot.
People
No,
forget
I'm going to go
that.
Lakers. Right. I'm going to go Lakers in 6, though, but I do think that if this could get tricky, because, again, after they get past AD and LeBron and maybe even Kuzma, the rest of that roster ain't that scary. Let's be real. So,
No reason. And that's
right.
huge because, EJ, when it comes to the Blazers, Ariza defended LeBron better than anybody else. LeBron shot 29% against being guarded by Ariza this season in their matchups. When he wasn't guarded by Ariza, LeBron shoots 70% against everybody else.
Right.
That's a recipe for disaster.
I'm just banging on LeBron being LeBron in playoffs. That's it. But again, anything can happen. All right, 2-7 in the Western Conference. LA Clippers against Dallas Mavericks. I'll be honest with you. The Mavericks have been a great story this year. I think it's goal time for the Clippers. I think the Clippers win this series easily. To be honest with you, I think they're winning 5 games.
I have Clippers in 6, and I think because here's the thing: Luka Doncic. This is going to be a test tube of how good Luka Doncic is, because Luka Doncic is going to go through the Mortal Kombat of defenders in this series. And why I say that is, EJ, we've all played Mortal Kombat. And how you get to Shang Tsung at the end of the game, you got to go through the gauntlet. So if Luka Doncic starts destroying Patrick Beverley in the beginning of the game, because I think Pat Bev will start on him, once you get past Pat Bev, you'll earn your way to getting Paul George. Paul George is still a good defender unless there's like 3 seconds left in the game and he somehow gives up game-winning shots. If you somehow get past Paul George, you got Kawhi Leonard waiting for you. If Luka puts up numbers on all 3 of those guys, you can elevate him into the top 5 in the NBA at that point. And it's going to be relentless for six games. The one thing that Portland, the Clippers have to worry about, other than what Doncic can do, is how are they going to stop Kristaps Porzingis? Porzingis has been phenomenal in the bubble. He makes Knicks fans cringe every time he does something spectacular. On the other hand, outside of those 2, your next big scoring option is Tim Hardaway Jr. No offense, Tim Hardaway Jr., it doesn't scare you. The Clippers go from Kawhi Leonard to Paul George. If they want to continue scoring, they just throw Lou Williams and the returning Montrezl Harrell back. Yeah. And they're going to keep scoring. I like Clippers in 6. But, man, watching Luka Doncic trying to maneuver this team defensively is going to be well worth the price of admission. I think Doncic might win a game or 2, and he might average a triple-double in the series. It's
very possible. But I do think this is, Clippers were the favorites to, when the overwhelming favorites, but it was like favorites to win the finals this year, and I think this is go time now for the Clippers, But I tell you what, though, Luka Doncic, this, obviously he's been the talk of the year, this could be a coming out party for him too, especially for even larger audiences who watch the NBA basketball, day to day. If Dallas somehow pushes 7 games, or hell, even upsets the Clippers in the first round, and Luka is a big reason why, top 5 player, absolutely.
Agreed.
So, okay, here we go. 3-6, Denver Nuggets, Utah Jazz. Very compelling series actually. 2 teams that people don't expect to ultimately win it, but again, this scenario opens a lot of things up. There is no home court advantage. Anything can happen. I see this going 7 games, honestly. I think Utah, I don't know. I think Utah, these teams do match fairly well. And I think Denver, they're a great regular season team, obviously, every year. It's just, it's playoff time, like last year against Portland. They should beat Portland in that series in the second round of playoffs. And they 7-game series, they lose there. I think they'll win this series, but I think this is going to go full 7 games. I got Denver in 7.
I have Denver in 5, and the reason why I say Denver in 5 is because the dynamic of the series changed this morning. Congratulations to Mike Conley on the birth of his child. Say he left the bubble because his wife had the baby. And he has now left the bubble, and so he will be back in a couple of days. With coming back in a couple of days, we don't know how long he's going to be out for. And a team like the Jazz, who are already shorthanded without Bojan Bogdanovic, who's been out the rest of the season, the Jazz don't have any more ball handlers at this point. So that puts the pressure and onus on Donovan Mitchell to be even more of a playmaker.
I did not hear this. So this is big, obviously. So I'm going to change my pick now. Denver still wins the series, but Denver in 5.
And the thing is, on the Denver side of things is, we all know Nikola Jokic, we all know Jamal Murray, but let me tell you something. Michael Porter Jr., if he's unleashed in this series like he was in the bubble, the Nuggets might possibly beat the Clippers in the next round. Michael Porter Jr. is that good. With Paul Millsap, with the returning Will Barton, the Nuggets can get up and down. I haven't mentioned Bol, but Gary Harris is another guy that hasn't really done much because he hasn't really been healthy. If everybody gets healthy for the Nuggets, they'll beat the Jazz in 5. I think Mitchell and Gobert and those guys can win one game. They don't have enough depth in this series, especially if we don't know about Mike Conley's return date. So give me Nuggets in 5.
All right. Well, now that I know about the Conley news, that's a big deal. That's a 2-game swing for me there. So Denver in 5 now as well. All right, and finally, last series here. Very compelling here. The Houston Rockets, 4-5. Houston Rockets against the Oklahoma City Thunder. OKC, I mean, obviously the story, probably the biggest story of the year, one of the biggest stories of the year. Thunder making the playoffs, not creating themselves after losing Westbrook. Impressive job there in Oklahoma City. Again, because of the scenario, if there's any time to make a splash and to steal a championship, now it's time for Houston to do it. Now, to me, this is like no, never for the Houston Rockets. If they can't get it this year, then when?
I think if they don't get it this year, this might be the Mike D'Antoni walk out the door year. The only problem is that Russell Westbrook's going to miss potentially the first 2 games. Russell Westbrook's not healthy. Before, the series, when this match was put together, EJ, I called this the Spider-Man GIF series. You all know the Spider-Man GIF where Spider-Man's pointing at Spider-Man. It's Chris Paul and Russell Westbrook pointing at each other saying, hey, weren't you on the same team last year? That's what it is. So you look at this matchup. Here's the thing. Russell Westbrook's not healthy, and Chris Paul's hamstrings can go at any point in time. So it's basically the survival of the fittest. The real question is the Rockets are going to shoot as many threes as possible. We all know this. So interior defense is nothing to be the Rockets are going to be concerned with. It's really about can they knock their shots down. Steven Adams will do whatever he wants, but Steven Adams is not a big scoring threat, so it's not much of anything. Can the Thunder play enough defense and get enough scoring from Danilo Gallinari, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and others to keep up with the Rockets and their record-shooting three-point pace? The problem is, I love Chris Paul, and Chris Paul deserves everything. And Billy Donovan deserves the co-coach of the year nod, which he got. But nobody on the Rockets, or nobody on the Thunder, even an unhealthy Andre Robertson, who's back in the rotation, can guard James Harden in this series. Give me Rockets in 7, but man, if Westbrook there's more than 2 games, the Thunder win the series. But I'll take Rockets in 7 as of right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna go there too because of the Westbrook thing. The shooting thing, again, their shooting is a humongous equalizer. Because that can make up for Westbrook missing games. Like they can steal a game or 2 with him not being there by having a 23 pointers in a game. You know what I'm saying? So that's a humongous equalizer. And I think James Harden can carry a few games himself here too. We knock Harden all the time for doing for what he is and underwhelming in the playoffs. But he does have moments in the playoffs where he will show up. At least early in the playoffs anyway, he will show up. And I think. I don't know. I just think the Rockets. I think the Rockets feel the pressure here. And I think this is their time or not. This is it.
I think Mike D'Antoni knows his time. I think honestly, once this year is over and the Rockets will be, if they get around 1, they're not going to beat the Lakers in round 2 because what's going to happen is the Lakers are going to slow the game down and just give the ball to Anthony Davis and let Anthony Davis just pound on PJ Tucker. And PJ Tucker, by the end of the season, his knees and body will be 55 years old. I think he just turned 35. You can't win with Robert Covington and Jeff Green are your tallest players in the court. So the small ball was great. James Harden has put up legendary, epic numbers, but in order for this team to win, James Harden cannot do what he does on a nightly basis, and they have to kind of well-round this team with that. So it'll be great to see 7 seconds or less just go away, but it'll be fun while it lasts the rest of this year. They're going to be firing until it's over.
In fact, I'm actually so confident in Houston win the series. I'm going to go and take them in 6 now, not in 7, in 6 games.
Okay.
Even with Westbrook not being there. Again, I think the odds are they'll have a couple of games where they'll just hit everything.
Oh yeah, there's gonna be at least a game or two because there'll be a game where Austin Rivers might score 40 in the series because it's just he's gonna be wide open.
Teams like that are so dangerous. They're so dangerous. Quickly, your prediction for the finals. Who wins it all?
I'm gonna go with what I've had at the beginning of the season. I'm taking Lakers and Bucks.
Wow.
And this will determine how the NBA landscape will go in 2021. I will say the Bucks will be winning in Orlando, and then the time clock on Anthony Davis will start in Los Angeles at that point.
You think so? Well, that'll be now. Wait, did he? He's a free agent after this year.
That's next year.
Well, one more year.
He's got
next
one year
left.
Okay. The 2021 class is the class where everybody can be a free agent. Like I said, I think whoever wins the championship between Lakers and Bucks, the superstar on the other team is on the clock. And only reason because Anthony Davis can be a free agent this summer. I don't see Davis signing long term. I see him signing a 1-1 deal, kind of the same way Kevin Durant did. That way, he's not left on the short end of the stick if LeBron James leaves in 2021.
Right. Because technically, next year could be LeBron's last year. Technically, it could be his last year. Yeah, absolutely. Before we go, we don't do this often on the podcast. We should though, because I forget you do actually watch wrestling. Have you enjoyed the AEW and WWE with no crowds?
It kind of takes away from it. I know they've had to readjust so many storylines because you kind of want the pop, and I know in the WWE's case they've had so many wrestlers and issues with COVID. The storylines are kind of boinked a bit. It has its moments. I think AEW's done a better job in the pandemic than the WWE has. But I think that will change the second the WWE moves back into the WWE moving into Amway. They're leaving the Performance Center and doing their shows at Amway. And they're going to start probably doing what the NBA does with virtual fans and Titantrons and everything inside Amway Arena. So that's going to force AEW to fix some things they've been lacking lately.
Right. Yeah. I will say the good thing about this, playing, no crowd era in both companies, especially. Number one, AEW has done it right from the get go. They have not, tried to make the fan look stupid or try to fool the fan. They know this is a real thing. They've kept the shows close to what it would be if they had fans in the crowd. They made some nice adjustments to the storylines, of course. Their show's been really, really good. Like there are moments I forget that there's no crowd out there. They've done a good job of that. In fact, WWE's been copying their format in the last couple of weeks now with both their shows.
Well, if you think about this, AEW does have fans, though. They do have a few fans over at Daly's Place. They do have fans inside of Daly's Place. I think they have to sign some kind of waiver, but they do have fans there. But to be honest with you, the one thing AEW has lacked, even during the pandemic, they still have lacked since day one, which still keeps me watching the WWE, is the fact of the women's division of AEW is awful.
Oh well, question. I've done podcasts in the last 2 months with Ray Moraldi. Well, not last year for that matter. Ray Moraldi and GW. Not G so doesn't watch that AEW, but I've done podcasts numerous times about this very subject. AEW's tag team division is amazing, best in pro wrestling right now.
Yes,
the singles, men's singles, all that solid. The women's division is terrible. Now it has improved slightly the last couple of weeks. We'll see where this goes with this thing they're doing now with the tournament, whatever, the tag team tournament. But yeah, that's the one thing's lacking is their women's division. I agree.
And to me, like it comes to a point where here's the part I have the issue with Wednesday nights, because NXT is arguably the best product that WWE has, and of course it's going against AEW on a nightly basis, a weekly basis. The issue I have with it is when I see a women's match on AEW, I change the channel. Now, what happens is, if NXT has a good match on, and because NXT, of course, has got the better storytelling of everybody, it's hard sometimes to go back to AEW because you're engulfed in what goes on in NXT. So, the old saying was, the WWE a long time ago was, when the women were in the ring, it was bathroom break time. It's to the point AEW where it's like, nothing against Nyla Rose, nothing against Britt Baker. Even the I can't remember the name of the champion. I'm drawing a blank.
Akira Shira. Hikaru
I'm
Shida.
literally like, okay, I'm good. But when the E has their women on, Sasha Banks, Bayley, I'm engulfed with it. And the sad part is, as bad, as great, as good as the division is, they've done nothing with Bianca Belair. They've done nothing with Shayna Baszler. The two best draws NXT's had in a long time, they're buried right now with nothing to do.
And that's the thing. Why move them if you're not going to use them? We're under impression late last year that when NXT moved to the USA, the idea was, well, if they were not going to be equal at Raw and SmackDown, they were certainly closer to equal, and to me, they were running so good late last year and early this year, NXT was, with their roster across the board.
EJ, here's a good question. Is it time for this to give the women their own show at this point?
No, I'm not with that. No, because the WWE does it right. WWE has enough. Because the thing is, though, honestly, there are some shows, especially the last couple months, where the women's storylines has been much better than the highlight of WWE right now of this COVID era has been Bayley and Sasha.
Yeah,
Bayley has been amazing, and considering the fact that Bayley kind of hit a wall last year, they turned her heel last fall. That took a while to catch on. But now it's caught on to a point now where she's been the MVP of anybody in the company, not just women's division, but the entire company. She's been pretty much the most impressive character on the entire roster.
I think Bayley has carried. Sasha's done a great job with it. Asuka is doing what she did at the time. And they still don't use her correctly though. I
agree.
And, and I thought with them moving Charlotte back over to NXT, that would have kept Belair over there. Because, Charlotte is the type now where I thought she was going to be helping build up talent, but she ends up winning a championship again, and then it makes the belt irrelevant again. There's so many great women in the WWE. The problem is there's not enough screen time for all of them. So the only thing for me, in my opinion, is they've got to give their own show. They should have did it after Revolution. They pulled the trigger with the pay-per-view, and they didn't pull the trigger then. They build us all up to this great main event pay-per-view. I hated the ending, the Ronda Rousey match with, I think it was Brie Bella or one of the Bella twins. That should have been, that wasn't really good main event, but you sold out that. You had a big crowd in Nassau. They should have pulled the trigger then.
Right.
You're right. Bayley's been the best thing that WWE's had because as much as I love The Fiend, I get confused half the time of what the hell's going on with The Fiend anyway. Those cinematic matches.
Especially now, I don't know if you saw SmackDown on Friday, especially after this episode, who knows now what's going on with The Fiend? Like, in terms of, is he babyface now? Is he a heel still?
Yeah, the whole point was, if he turns babyface, that's the second time they've ruined Bray Wyatt in less than 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were perfect when when Bray Wyatt was coming out of the swamp. Now you have the Bray Wyatt with The Fiend. I don't want him being cheered. No, give me this is Vince logic completely. It's annoying, even the match with Braun Strowman when they did the cinematic match where Braun Strowman was dragged in the water. There's really no winner in the Swamp Yard match, which made no sense, and it wasn't even for the championship.
Yeah.
It's confusing. But they touched the peakness of the greatness of Bray Wyatt when the John Cena match happened, because I still think it's one of the better matches they had all year.
Mm-hmm.
Now
let me leave on this. Go ahead. Yeah, let me leave on this one quick. This Randy Orton version here this year, especially in the COVID era, holy shit. Randy Orton has been phenomenal for the last couple months.
Randy Orton is timeless.
Yeah.
Randy Orton, you might hate some people hate Randy Orton, but I will say this. Randy Orton, by the time it's all said and done, his character could be one of the 10 greatest wrestlers of all time. You might not like him, but Randy Orton transforms himself so easily into everything he does. When he's a babyface, it was fine. This Randy Orton we see now, every time he's made a type of change, not only has he adapted to it, he's raised it to a new level every time. Listen, I hope he beats Drew McIntyre. I don't think he will, but I hope he does. There's nothing more than watching Randy Orton. I love watching Randy Orton.
No, it's funny. So you obviously my story with pro wrestling. Last year watching the current product was the first time in 17 years I watched it. So obviously I knew who Randy Orton was for 30 years, but I just, I was never invested because I remember I dropped off after Hogan Rock in 2002.
Okay.
At WrestleMania 18. Now this is shortly before Ruthless Wrestling era started. So obviously John Cena, Randy Orton, all those guys come up. Orton is one of the top guys in the last 15, 16, 17 years. And obviously I know how big he is. Obviously he's Bob Orton's son, all that. And in watching Randy Orton, now in hindsight through the years, watching on the network and some of his great matches done back in the past, and then seeing him last year, especially, in real time, he's someone I can understand people not liking and sometimes even being bored of, but you at some point have to appreciate him. And I think this run, and this really started in January, forget COVID, in January with the whole Edge thing. Okay? Mm-hmm. And going to Mania, and then now doing the Legend Killer again now, kicking Ric Flair in the mouth, Big Show and all that. This Randy Orton, I mean, is to me just by watching in bits and pieces and watching, is by far the most impactful in my opinion. And it's funny, Drew will probably keep the title, and I want Drew to win the title, but based on where this is going, it kind of makes sense to put the belt on Randy now.
I mean, and then the thing is, and then let Drew chase it, and then hopefully by the time we get crowd back, Drew gets the moment he was supposed to get at WrestleMania.
Yes. You made a great point there. Yeah.
Drew never got his WrestleMania moment.
No, and I love Drew. I think Drew's has been a really good champion so far.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's always hard to be that champion when you get the belt at WrestleMania because how long do you keep the belt? You got to be a credible champion. You got to make sure the champion. You don't want to do to the belt what they did with Kofi. Hate to say it, they did Kofi dirty with the championship belt by making him lose the Lesnar in like 10 seconds.
Well, a lot of things happened with that with the SmackDown thing and all that bullshit. That's a whole other rabbit hole to get into, obviously. You know what I mean? So, but I agree with you, man. You put Drew in chase mode again, and he gets that pop again next year because Randy at his age now is about making guys now. Bringing guys up. And
I mean,
Drew,
he is old. He's a throwback to to what wrestling that we grew up watching.
Yes,
the storytelling. Correct. Randy Orton's believable, and that's what makes his character so great because it's believable. So much of the WWE and sometimes even AEW is not believable, and when it's not believable, it's kind of unwatchable.
Right. Well, we're gonna see more of SummerSlam next week, so looking forward to that. So
exactly,
Danny Thompson, plug away, man. You got a lot of things going on. Plug away. Let the folks know.
First off, EJ, it's a great time being on your show because I don't have to drive the car. I could just sit back and ride. I love this.
Isn't it nice? Isn't it nice though?
It is nice not having to drive the car sometimes. You can listen to my show, of course, for myself and a friend of the podcast, my main man, the student of the game itself, Kyle Nash, on Beyond the Buzzer, Mondays and Thursday nights, 9 p.m. on Zingo Television Channel 199, or 198, no, 199. Also, Facebook Live is that show. I do have an NBA show, myself and Deshaun Tate, called Talking Hoops. That's on Tuesday night to 9 p.m. on Zingo TV and Facebook Live. I check out my work at the 3-Point Conversion, which is 3pointconversion.com. I cover the WNBA, NBA, NFL, and college football over there. And also Sunday nights, my show with myself and Raphael Haynes, otherwise known as Mr. Controversy. We do top tens Sundays at 9 on Facebook Live. So, we're everywhere. I'm just enjoying the lifestyle right now.
Hey man, we're having a show again soon because and the very fact also that you do watch wrestling still, it makes it even more enticing to having to show you more often now.
Hey, listen, I mean, it's crazy. A buddy of mine came over the other day because he just started his wrestling podcast this weekend. He dropped his first episode called Get the Tables, and yes, my friend, my man Brandon King, BK. And we were talking about wrestling in general, and we were just talking about how the network had just added Evolve and WXW onto the network this weekend.
Yes.
And I ended up starting watching some of Evolve, and I forgot Drew and Keith Lee was in Evolve. Drew McIntyre and Keith Lee both were involved at one point, and it's just crazy how wrestling has evolved so much. And it's been timeless. Even when you didn't watch it over the years, it's still timeless. Just look dumb.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's funny. 'Cause I have my own wrestling podcast too. My friends, and one of the good things about for me anyway, personally, is that it allows me to timestamp things that I may have missed. So I've been going back and watching things in the past. I'm watching old matches, old NXT matches, and all stuff from the Ruthless Aggression era, PG era, all that, you name it. And it's been great stamps for me to fill in the gaps. There's a thing also, by the way, that Network added recently, just last week. The series called Timeline. And the first episode was on Daniel Bryan and The Miz and their entire rivalry that spanned 8 years. I had no idea that these guys were major rivals for as long as they were, and it covered the entire 8 years rivalry from 2010 to as recent as 2019. And I watched that, and I was able to get filled in with that rivalry that I didn't know about. And then they just dropped today the Owen Hart Bret Hart timeline as well too. So it's the second part of that series is out today too. So
that's gonna be interesting,
really
especially WWE holding stuff with Owen Hart. I wonder how that turned out.
Well, it's their material; they can use it. I mean,
I know. It's just now what they need to do is if you're going to go old school, of course, there's plenty of ones in the timeline. Of course, we all know it, but there's got to be timelines from the older '80s and stuff they're going to have. And at that point, EJ, you might lose life because you'll be watching those things over and over again.
Of course. Hogan Andre, Hogan Macho. You can do Warrior and Rick Rude. There's so many things you can do. I can donate ideas to the creators of WWE to do this. Trust me. I mean, I'm Hulkamanian Mark. So, there's so many ways to go with this one. You know what I mean? But Danny, thanks for coming on the podcast. We'll have you on again very soon. I promise. And get some sleep.
All right, man. Much love. Thanks for having me on.
All right, brother. You got it, brother. Take care. Thank you.